Ball Pit is my favourite game of the year so far, and it's so fun and addicting that I put in just under 30 hours in 4 days, with one of those sessions being half a day long, and whenever I wasn't playing it, I was thinking about it. To keep it simple, it's Vampire Survivors plus Breakout, with all kinds of cool upgrades that synergise with each other, and meta progression that lets you keep getting more and more powerful. The game is hard at first, but it's a game that wants you to win, and the trophy list is super straightforward, so sit back, relax, and let me take you through the wonderful dopamine-filled journey of getting the Ball Pit Platinum. And look, if you want to just buy the game now and put this video on a second screen, by all means go ahead. The setup of the game is that the moon has crashed into Babylon, and a pit is all that remains. It's our job to enter the pit, see what we can find, and rebuild a new Babylon. The gameplay is super simple. We play as this character at the bottom of the screen and shoot balls at the enemies coming from the top of it. You always start with one special ball that has unique properties and a bunch of baby balls that do base damage. After you kill an enemy, a gem will pop out, and if you collect it, it will fill up this ever expanding blue bar. Once the bar is filled, you'll level up, and this will temporarily improve your stats like damage or ball speed, and you get to choose an item. We're roguelike guys, of course we choose 3 things. At the very start of the game, we've got 4 slots for special balls and 4 slots for passive items. The balls obviously improve your damage output, and the items can give you buffs that can add to your build. For example, you can increase damage when bouncing off walls, or increase crit chance depending on what side you hit an enemy on. There's a lot to learn and think about in this game, and for my first choice, I picked the lightning ball that deals damage to surrounding enemies when it hits. We quickly level up again and upgrade it to level 2 to increase its damage. We continue to level up and get more balls, and we find our first fusion reactor. Later on these will be super important, but for now we can use it to randomly get between 1 and 5 upgrades for the balls and items that we currently have. And just 20 seconds later we find our second one. Now that we have 2 balls at level 3, which is the max, we can fuse them together. So this bleed lightning ball has the properties of both. If it hits an enemy, it applies the bleed effect, which makes them take more damage. However, because it now has lightning powers as well, that bleed effect will hit multiple enemies at the one time. And this is the magic of the game. Everything works with everything, and you can create some super powerful builds really easily. Everyone is bleeding, so they're taking more damage, so they die faster, so they drop gems, so we level up faster to get more items, so we do more damage. And now our lightning is doing 15% more damage. And this powerful build means we can easily defeat our first mini-boss. Each level has 2, as you can see on the right, and the mini-boss drops a lot of gems and always gives you a fusion reactor. So these mini-bosses are big roadblocks, but if you can get past them, you'll get a big level up and it will just torpedo your build. We fused our horizontal laser and earthquake balls, so this ball now hits everyone around it, and everyone in the entire row. And we managed to take down the second mini-boss and fused our burning broodmother balls. So these now burn enemies, which does tick damage, and they have a chance to spawn additional baby balls when you hit an enemy. However, like I mentioned, the game is quite hard at the start and we've got very little health, so just before the first boss, we died because the enemies made their way to the bottom. However, and this is also the magic of the game, our character, the warrior, gains experience which permanently increases his stats, so we now start with more health and do more damage. We're taken back to Babylon and get to see the other side of the game, which is the base building aspect. I'll get into this later when it's relevant, but all you need to know is we can get more permanent unlocks here, but we'll need some resources to build them. So there's a bit of a farming element here as we collect some wheat and wood. We can only harvest once after every run, so let's head back into the boneyard. So we now start again with only our character's special ball, but with those slight stat boosts from leveling up, and we just go again. Don't worry, I won't be boring you with the details of every single run, but we should definitely talk about each ball type, and as we unlock each character, we'll do a bit of a deep dive on each of them. So the bleed ball applies bleed to enemies, and this essentially decreases their defense, and if you apply more bleed stacks to them, they take even more damage. The ghost ball pierces through enemies, so it will come back to you after hitting the back wall. This one isn't great because the game is all about bouncing balls between enemies and the wall to constantly apply effects, but I'm sure you can imagine how great this could be if you fuse it with another ball. The wind ball is similar to the ghost, except it deals slightly less damage, however it will slow enemies down when it hits them. The vertical laser fires a vertical laser when it hits an enemy, and you've already seen that there's also a horizontal version. Poison applies the poison effect and is very similar to the burn ball. I'll also touch on in the items a bit, but there's a lot more of them, and while they are powerful, they're a lot less exciting. We've got the Emerald Tilted Dagger, which increases crit chance when a ball hits the enemy on their right side, and this is why I'm focusing hits on the mini-boss like this. The big yellow numbers are critical hits. The vertical laser bleed ball is very cool because it applies bleed on everything the laser hits, which is pretty much every enemy. There are a lot of moments in the game where one fusion like this can genuinely make you like 10 times more powerful. But even though you think you're powerful, you can still very quickly die. But we leveled up again and we found a blueprint to unlock a new character. The itchy finger starts with a burn ball and shoots very fast, however his aim is just a tiny bit scattered, but in my opinion he's one of the most powerful characters in the game. Now I love piercing in any game, so when I found the ethereal cloak which makes every ball pierce and do more damage until they hit the back wall, I was very excited. However, almost immediately after taking it, I realised with certain builds or the lack of a build, not every item is useful. Because now I shoot my balls and when they hit the back wall they come back, but now they bounce off the final line of enemies basically forever. Which is great because the enemies are dying, but it makes it very hard to focus on the enemies at the front, which are technically the most dangerous because they're the ones that actually do damage to you. At the start of this run I also got a bunch of items instead of balls, which I quickly realised is the wrong tactic. Because you want as many balls as possible early on so you can make use of the fusion reactors and fuse them together, so then you can get even more balls. We got the vampire ball that has lifesteal because we were very close to death, and we also picked up a health potion, which sometimes spawn when defeating enemies. But this build was kind of cooked from the start and we couldn't even get past the second mini boss. But remember, the itchy finger was only level 1, and even though we've died, he's now more powerful. On the next run we picked up the egg sac, which when it hits an enemy will turn into baby balls. If you combine this with the correct balls or items, a baby ball build can be super powerful, which is why we also picked up the brood mother, which is similar to the egg sac, except it has a 25% chance of spawning a baby ball whenever it hits. With this character who shoots so fast, we can fill the screen with baby balls, and we can combine the burn and egg sac balls. So now our baby balls burn after they spawn, and we picked up an item that multiplies our baby ball generation. And with this build, we were finally able to get past the second mini boss, but we still died right after. However, we found a blueprint for our first stat boosting building. The gunsmith will increase all of our characters' dexterity by 1, which increases how fast we shoot and the base crit chance. And after placing it in our town, to build it we have to bounce on it 4 times. So we send our warrior and itchy finger out, and as we unlock more characters to fight with, we also unlock them to harvest with. A lot of the buildings can be upgraded to be even better, and we now had the resources to make this building give us 2 decks, but we'll need to bounce on it after the next run to actually activate that upgrade. You can also upgrade your resource farm so you can get more at the one time, and I'll be honest, this is one of the only aspects of the game that I don't love, but you do need to engage with it. However, there's a way you can kind of just cheese it later on, and it's not as annoying as it first looks. On the next run we got the iron ball, which does double damage but it's a bit slower, and we used a fusion reactor to get it to level 3 instantly, which meant when we got our next fusion reactor we had a surprising new option, evolution. And we now have the bomb, which blows up and does a ton of damage, and it's got a 3-second cooldown, which solves our piercing issue from earlier because we can always just blow up the closest enemy to us. And again, this is the magic of the game. Every single ball can fuse with any other ball, but there are about 25 special combinations that are incredibly powerful, and you need to find them as you play the game, take mental notes on which ones work for your playstyle, and then work towards them on future runs to ensure victory. For the platinum we'll need to find every single combination, but the discovery is an amazing part of this game, so I won't talk about every single one, and I'll let you discover them yourself. It is quite funny because just minutes after finding our first evolution, we found our second one, because I found that if you get both versions of the laser, you can evolve them into a holy hand grenade which shoots lasers in both directions. And this early on is when I knew that I loved the game, and the hunt for more evolutions was just so fun. The laser one was a bit obvious, but it got me thinking, what if you put fire and ice together? What about wind and earthquake since they're opposite? Will wind and poison create a virus? And by following this mindset, I was always rewarded by what I found. And it doesn't stop there, because once we found our next fusion reactor, I found out that once a ball is evolved, it can still be fused. And you can even fuse 2 evolved balls together to create the most powerful ball imaginable. Bomb X Holy Laser was actually a bit of a mistake, but we're still in the discovery phase of the game, so, you know. And it was powerful enough that when we took on the final boss for the first time, we had the abilities to take him down very easily. You can only damage the Skeleton King by carving balls around him and hitting his crown, or if you have the ethereal cloak, you can pierce a holy laser bomb through his head over and over again until he dies. We get a trophy for beating the first level, a gear to upgrade the lift, a trophy blueprint, and of course we level up again. We also unlock a new ball and 3 new items that can appear. But to get to the next level, we need 2 gears, and you get 1 for completing a level with a new character. We didn't have enough resources yet to unlock the 3rd character, so we just went back in as the warrior. After completing a level, you also unlock fast mode, which speeds up the rate that the enemies move through the level. This lets you complete them faster, but it's also easier to get overwhelmed when you're still quite weak. We'll jump up to the fast difficulty later. At the start of the run, we unlock the dark ball, which does 3 times your usual damage, but it disappears when it hits an enemy and it's got a 3-second cooldown. If you get it to level 3, it does 5 times your usual damage, and you might have already thought about this, but if you fuse it with the bomb, then you basically win the game. We lost the run, but when we came back, we spent gold to expand our town for more space, but I still wasn't entirely sure what I was doing here. We managed to get a Pearson poison build here to take down the boss for the 2nd time, which got us another blueprint and another gear to unlock level 2. I was also getting smarter with my harvesting, which led me to build 2 new character houses, but we need to bounce on them to actually play as them. Before moving on to the snowy shores, I wanted to get the blueprints we were missing in the boneyard, so I checked out the fast difficulty. We died quite quickly, but what I love about this game is it doesn't waste your time. Even though we didn't progress, we did find a new evolution here which I can remember to use on a future run, and of course we leveled up once again. And I now worked out we could rearrange our buildings into a little corridor to maximise our bounces. Well, I guess that kind of worked. I have been talking about remembering evolutions, but it's worth pointing out that the game has a nice quality of life feature where if you already have one half of a combo that you know, it will highlight the other half in the level up menu. This can make decision making a lot quicker because right now the game is basically saying don't pick ice, which we haven't actually spoken about yet because I hardly pick it, but it has a chance of freezing enemies. With 1 more bounce we can now play as the Repentant and the Cohabitants. The Repentant starts with an ice ball, and every time a ball hits the wall, its damage will increase by 5%. However, once it hits the back wall, it will automatically come back to you. So each character basically has certain items or builds that work well with their gimmick. So with this guy you want to get items that work well with ball bouncing and start every shot hitting the wall, but I will say I don't like this guy that much. The Cohabitants have lower base damage, but they fire double the amount of balls. So pure attacking balls like dark or iron don't work as well, but these guys can inflict double the amount of bleed and poison, and they can fire double the amount of lasers. And most importantly, you can spawn a whole lot of baby balls. They start with the Broodmother, which gives you a head start on that, and these guys can get super powerful, and I managed to beat the boss on my very first run with him. Now, you might be wondering why I unlocked level 2 but I haven't started it yet, and other than the blueprints that we still need to find, when you beat the level for the first time, you unlock a trophy, and once it's built, every new character you clear the level with will give you a slight boost to all of your characters, and we get an actual trophy for building our first one. So as you can see, we get a 0.05 status effect boost for each character we complete the boneyard with, and if we beat it on fast, it will be a 0.055 boost instead. Like I said, this game never wastes your time and everything you do makes you better, and the game wants you to win. So after beating the boneyard with all 4 of our characters so far, we built some more stat boosting buildings and finally head into the snowy shores. So each level is very similar, but they each have different enemies that might have gimmicks like ranged attack or shields, enemies that can stack on top of each other and move faster, just small variations like that. And each level also has a unique environmental obstacle on the ground. Like this one has some ice you can slide around on, which doesn't do much to be honest. Each level obviously has its own set of mini-bosses and a main boss. Like this mini-boss who's got a front shield so you need to hit him from the side, and this guy who shoots out 3 ice shards in a wide arc. And then we have the Icebound Queen who has actual attack patterns that you'll need to memorise and dodge. It took me a while to learn that one, but remember, no wasted time, because we were able to unlock the Embedded and take him back to the boneyard. He starts with a poison ball, and his gimmick is that his balls will always pierce, but they become normal again once they hit a wall. At first I was just using them to shoot forward, but I quickly realised that if you pierce into the edge of an enemy, your balls will get stuck against the wall multiple times and it'll hit until they die basically. This is another character that's super easy to build around and do some cool stuff, but if you don't get the correct build, he's got the same piercing issue as earlier and it's super easy to die as him. While running level 2 over and over, I found that I never had enough resources to upgrade my buildings, so I tweaked the corridor technique that didn't actually go to plan, but it did still kind of work. Something I do like about the base building stuff is that even if you fail at your big plan, you're basically guaranteed to still get something out of it. I know this is a very simple game in terms of plot and vibe and themes and stuff like that, but I love this overall theme of constant progression. It doesn't matter if you actually do something well, it just matters that you attempted it and you did it, and things get easier the more you do them. After updating my characters a bit more and getting a more solid build, we took down the second boss very quickly. We got another level trophy, one of the 2 gears we need to move on, and a new character. We also unlocked another set of items and we had now collected a total of 5,000 gold. And we'd also now built a wheat farm, which will passively collect wheat when we're in the pit. Eventually we can lock one of these for wood and stone. But for now, let's check out our new character, the Cogitator. He starts with a vertical laser, and he's just super interesting, because his gimmick is he picks your level ups for you. This isn't powerful or anything, but it's just one of those cool game design things where I don't think I've ever seen anything like this. Sometimes he'll pick items you don't like, but he can also make you pick items that you don't usually pick, and then you can discover a new evolution. He's just kind of neat. I spent a lot of time here just grinding out unlocks and resources and finding more powerful evolutions. And then we got a trophy for upgrading one of our stat boosting buildings to level 5. And another for expanding the land 5 times. And I finally unlocked the 3rd level, which once again has a bunch of blueprints, and it's got 2 gears for us to find to unlock level 4. So the liminal desert is similar again, but with some moving enemies and sand pits to slow you down. And it's also got some amazing music. And because we had spent so long leveling up, it meant I was able to beat this level on my very first go. At this point, I had also developed a new harvest technique where you just stack all the buildings you want to hit at the front and bounce on it crazy style. The Shade starts with a Dark Ball and is one of the other characters who completely changes how you play the game. Because while he's still at the bottom of the screen, you shoot balls from the top. This guy's just super interesting because he's so different to the others, but he does also suffer from the piercing problem, because if there are too many enemies at the back wall, you won't be able to hit the enemies near the front and you'll take damage quickly. The Dark Ball doing triple or quintuple damage can sometimes save you, but I found this character quite hard to use until we get a game-changing upgrade later on. But for now, I did get a few fun runs in with him, like when we got this item that increases crit chance if you hit them from the back, another that makes balls do more damage until they bounce, which is great with a Dark Ball. We made crits do more damage, and we got a vertical laser that made it so it wasn't only the back wall that was getting hit. And then by evolving the Dark and Iron Balls, we got the Assassin Ball that does more damage when hitting from the back. Then we fused that with the Holy Laser, and obviously because he shoots from the back, the first boss is super easy. By unlocking level 4, we also unlock some new items and the Light Ball. This one blinds enemies, and when an enemy is blind, it only has a 50% chance of actually doing damage. I hardly ever use this one to be honest, because in my opinion, once the enemies get to the bottom of the screen, you're basically dead anyway. All of the items that increase dodge chance or defense feel useless to me, because even if you now take 30% less damage, if you can't kill the enemies fast enough, you're still going to get hit like 50 times. Back in the town, all our farms were going, and we had now harvested 1,000 wheat in total. And then we built our first gold mine, which gives you gold every time you bounce on it. We only get a few hundred now, but we ramp up quickly as we build more of them. And after completing the desert enough times, we unlocked Fungal Forest. The enemy gimmick here is that these purple guys will charge towards you and push the whole stack, and the other purple enemies will lob down projectiles that you have to dodge. I think the boss here is super fun because it's actually a swarm of smaller enemies, and if you sort out a build that deals well with lots of smaller enemies, like a Bleed Holy Laser, you can kill these guys super fast. The requirements jump up a bit here, and we now need to beat this level 2 more times. We've also now unlocked the Cell Ball, which splits into a copy of itself when it hits an enemy. It's not great on its own, but it's got amazing fusion potential. After building the Matchmaker building, the game once again turns in its head and my mind was blown, because we can now play as 2 characters at the one time. What this means is we now start with both of their starting balls, but their gimmicks also combine. So we can play as the Shade, who shoots from the back, and pair them with the Embedded, whose balls pierce until they hit a wall. This makes the Shade actually fun to play, but these character combinations open up a whole new world of builds and synergies. I genuinely thought this was mind-blowing, and I was so excited to see what combinations I could find that would result in broken builds. And even from a base level, starting with 2 balls is a huge damage upgrade early on, and if you pair certain characters together, you can get an evolution super early. We also just unlocked the Shield Bearer, who starts with the Iron Ball. His gimmick is that if a ball hits his shield, it will bounce back, and every time it bounces, it doubles in damage. If you pair them with the Shade, you can just aim at the shield, bounce balls back, and easily win every run. From now on, every time we unlock a character, we're basically now unlocking 5 or 6 different characters with all the combinations. And another thing with this upgrade is that beating a level this way counts as a checkmark for both characters, which means we can now upgrade our trophies and get gears to unlock new levels much faster. Meanwhile, back in Balbalon, our wood farms had gotten us 1,000 wood in total, and we would continue to get more amazing upgrades, like now our starter balls start fully upgraded. But at this point I had so many buildings to upgrade, so I began to just throw the run which would give us money for dying, and then let us harvest again. This did kind of feel like it was going against the point of the game, but I was just chasing those upgrades, you know, you have to understand the feeling. We had now unlocked the Spendthrift, who I really enjoyed playing as. He starts with a vampire ball and he shoots the balls out in a wide arc. When you play as him, you basically don't have to aim anymore because there's no point. And I loved pairing them with the shield bather because chances are the balls flying about the screen are going to hit the shield. We've now entered level 5, the Go the Grasslands. This level is actually the most basic of them all and it doesn't have any floor hazards, but this level adds different sized enemies to the pool. When we came back, we had now gathered 1,000 stone in total, and we went back in with our basic warrior and the cogitator to choose our build. And I guess he knows what he's doing because we easily defeated the Sabertooth boss. We had now unlocked the Juggler, who starts with a lightning ball and lobs balls where you aim them. He's quite cool because this means you can focus on the specific enemy you want to hit and then aim directly for them before the balls go bouncing anyway. And this means you can just aim directly for the Skeleton King's crown. It's also worth talking about that as you level up each character, their building will also gain a passive bonus. They're all just kind of small boosts and not super relevant, but the Shield Bearer's house allows you to quickly upgrade buildings, as each bounce on it counts as 2 bounces on each nearby building. And doing this allowed us to increase one of our stat scaling to S. The Embedded's house also gives bonus XP to all characters in the nearby houses, so I created this little village where they could all live together. One of my favourite character combos was the Itchy Finger in the Spendthrift, because it's basically just carnage with balls going everywhere, so we could easily take down the 5th boss again and get 2 gears to unlock level 6. And then we used them again when we entered the Smoldering Depths. The main thing in this level is our lava we have to dodge. With these characters and this build, the boss went down almost instantly once he stopped dodging. We then unlocked the Tactician, who's another super interesting one because it makes every battle turn-based. So in almost a direct opposite from the previous 2 characters, we now need to actually think about where we aim and try to maximise every ball. I actually kind of didn't enjoy playing as a Tactician, but I do love the idea here, and again, I just love how different some of the characters get. And in this run, we got our first trophy for getting an evolved evolution. We start with an iron ball and evolved it with a burn to get the bomb, and after getting it to level 3, we could then evolve it with poison and turn it into a nuclear bomb, which is brilliant. Items with a cooldown are super powerful with the Tactician, since it means you get to fire them on every single shot. So for the rest of the run, we started with a nuke, and then we could fuse it with Dark, so our nuke now does 5 times the normal damage. And this made the Skeleton King very, very easy. And we had now completed the Boneyard with 10 of the 16 total characters. There's a trophy like this for every level, and for the Platinum, we will eventually need to complete every level as every character. So we progressed into level 7 with our fast shield build, and I had a very easy time of it. I think the only gimmick in this level is that some of the enemies can grab your balls and hold them hostage until they die. Honestly, I'm not fussed about the lack of level variety in the game. Each level was just another excuse to kill enemies with more health while getting some new art and new music. I don't actually need each level to be super unique. The Lord of Owls fight has so many other enemies that he spawns, and it can get quite overwhelming if your build doesn't work, so this boss did actually take about 2 minutes. But we got our trophy for finishing the level, and another for finding 15 blueprints. And we get another bit of incredibly weird game design when we unlock the Radical, because they, and I quote, play the game and choose upgrades automatically. And this is hard to get across in the video, but it does exactly that. You choose to play the Radical and you put your controller down. They start with a wind ball, and when you pair them with another character, they'll just go through the entire level for you. There could be a long discussion here about if I'm even playing the game anymore, but let's just enjoy this for the weird and cool idea that it is. I should also point out that it's not some kind of supercomputer AI playing for you. You know, sometimes he does make stupid mistakes, and if you're not a high enough level to survive, he will just die. This isn't like a win the game button. We had now unlocked the blueprints for the Bag Maker and the Carpenter, which are huge upgrades and allow us to have more balls and items, but the cost to build them is a huge jump up, so I finally had to start putting together a proper money farm if I wanted to build them. And this is what I was focusing on while I played about with the Radical to see what he was up to. I made this setup of 4 gold mines, which wasn't amazing, but in about half an hour we could build and buy the Bag Maker to now hold 5 balls. This is mainly a damage upgrade, as you can now have 1 more special ball, but it also allows you to evolve and fuse more balls because you have more space, and it gives you more options for fusing. This is a great upgrade. And we've now unlocked another character, the Makeshift Sisyphus. He doesn't shoot any baby balls, but he starts with the earthquake ball and he's quite cool. His balls actually don't do any damage when they hit an enemy, but all of his AoE and status effect damage is multiplied by 4, which means he's very powerful, but you need to get the right build for him to actually work. For example, Dark Ball, Cell Ball, and the Iron Ball that I pick up here won't actually do anything for them, but Poison and Bleed are great, and you can obviously fuse some of the useless balls with the useful balls and maybe get somewhere. He's quite unique and had a lot of fun with them, especially when I saw him melt the Mushroom Boss. We also unlock the Physicist, who starts with a light ball, and his gimmick is that his balls are all pulled towards the back wall. I love playing as him too because he can simply shoot up and your balls will bounce over and over again until the enemy's dead. Again, this is a character who works amazing with status effect balls, since the enemies will get the highest level of the status effect applied to them very quickly, and he's also great with baby ball builds. And finally, we unlocked our final character, the Empty Nester. This guy starts with the Ghost Ball and also has no baby balls. However, he shoots out multiple versions of one of the special balls that you have. This guy's got potential, but you really need a specific build to make him work and get him powerful. For example, if you only had the nuclear bomb, then this would be an easy win, because you could just constantly fire 5 or 6 nuclear bombs at the one time. However, once you get multiple balls, you'll pick one randomly each time you shoot. So you basically want to have only 1 or 2 great balls, but as your inventory starts filling up, you inevitably start picking one of the filler balls and you know, like, the build falls apart. His gimmick also doesn't really work if you have auto fire on, because as soon as you get a ball back, you automatically shoot it out on its own and then change ball type. So if you play him like this, he basically just plays like a normal character. I found him quite hard and confusing to use, but of course we can just pair him with another character to get his unlocks. I realised here that we could tighten up our gold farm to get more hits, and the way that these work is that each time you hit them, you get between 1 and 4 gold, and you can hit each one 100 times. So if you've got 4 set up and you manage to hit each one the maximum amount of times, we can get anywhere between 400 and 1.6k gold. And for our trophy, we have to get 1000 in the one go. Ah, so close. We'll be back to today again, but by now we had all 5 gears to upgrade the lift and unlock the final level, the Vast Void. I went for a piercing itchy finger build to spam the enemies with bullets, and with a dark nuclear bomb, baby ball and poison build, we made it to the final boss at our first go with very little health left. For the first phase, you need to deal damage to his 8 eyes, while also dealing with all the other enemies at the side. And when you kill one of his eyes, it splits into these smaller enemies that just get in the way. The Vast Void has these black holes on the floor, and if you walk into them, you'll teleport somewhere else on the screen. This shouldn't mess you up too much, but you can also use them to your advantage, because if you shoot a ball in there, it'll teleport somewhere randomly and keep its momentum. Once you kill the final eye, the moon will be at half health and start spinning around while shooting at you. You need to dodge around him and either dodge or shoot the bullets so they disappear. He's got a few different attack patterns, but after each one he'll stop, so you can just nuclear bomb him. We got a trophy for beating the level and another for beating every level with the itchy finger. The moon opens up and we head inside and we float around it, I guess. There's 6 other spaces here, so while the game doesn't explicitly tell you, to officially beat the game and get to the credits, you need to beat this level with 8 different characters. But this is now what I consider the end game, because this is when I started looking at the other trophies and tried to get every evolution that I was missing, and along the way check off every level as every character. First off, we continued to build and upgrade every building that I could, and we finally built the Carpenter for another item slot, and then we got lucky with the Gold Mine RNG for 1000 gold in one go. Then I started to just farm some money. Every harvest we were getting around 1000 gold, and we had unlocked an upgrade to harvest multiple times in the one day by paying some money. This starts out small at 240 and increases every time, but as long as it's less than 1000 we're making a profit. And then we can do another run to reset the cost. The reason I need money is because I need a lot of wheat and stone for the final buildings, and I just unlocked the market, which allows you to just buy it instead of farming it. But honestly, the exchange rate here is crazy bad, and you'd need an obscene amount of money to do it this way. At first I was just going to do it this way, so I set up a more efficient money farm with the corridor method, but we're still a long ways away, and I did eventually just resort to farming wheat the normal way. Now let's talk evolutions and how I found the last few hidden ones. The game has got an encyclopedia with every ball in it, and if you scroll to the bottom of a ball's page, it tells you how many evolutions you have left for it. So I set up a table with every ball that had evolutions left for, paired against every other ball that had evolutions left for, if that makes sense. And then while I was playing the game, I could test them and tick them off whether or not they combine or not. For example, if I've got a level 3 bleed and burn ball, I'd see if they fuse, and if they did, I could take them off my list, but if they didn't, I could tick off that combo and see if bleed and light works. And if it does, I'd take them off my list, and if it didn't, I'd do another combination. This was a bit tedious, and maybe I should have just used a guide, but I had fun doing this and it did work. Because just 1 minute later in my first run, I found 2 new evolutions using the new charm ball. And then the radical carried us through the last level again, so we're now halfway through to beating the game. After gathering a ton of money, I set up a proper wheat farm, and we got a trophy for harvesting 100 in the one go. And after hours of going for evolutions and whittling my table down, we found another special evolution by evolving 2 evolved balls together to create Satan, and he's actually incredibly powerful, so, you know, all hail. With all of our resources, we can now build the evolution chamber, which means every ball we pick up now starts at level 2, and when we upgrade it, they start at level 3. This will make the remaining evolutions a lot easier, and this is actually how we got the final evolution ball that we needed, by combining the warrior and the spendthrift starting bleeding vampire balls to create the vampire lord, the egg sac and the brood mother for the spider queen, the brood mother and the vampire for the mosquito king, and if we get them all to level 3, we can create the only 3 ball evolution as the lord, king and queen create Nosferatu. I was wondering why the trophy for completing the encyclopedia didn't pop here, and then I remembered that items can also evolve, so I set up another table and got to work. There was only 8 passive evolutions and some of them were obvious, so this didn't take long at all. But first we built another stat building, which would allow us to upgrade them infinitely, if we have enough coin and resources of course. To get the passives, I should point out that I got an upgrade to choose another ball and passive at the start for free, and when we level up we can banish 4 items that will never appear again, and this will give the stuff we want to see a higher chance of showing up. We can also reroll the upgrades 4 times for free, and a few more times after that by spending some gold. And by filling up all of our ball slots, it meant we could only get passives. And this meant I would be able to get the 4 daggers that increase crit chance, and evolve them into the Deadeye's Cross. If you fully upgrade this, it gives you 100% crit chance, and this is super powerful and it's got some cool synergies. In the very same run, we also got a trophy for creating the Soul Reaver. Then we got an item to improve our crit damage, so we're always critting, doing big damage, and healing and overhealing ourselves. So the final boss went down super easy, and we had now completed it with 6 out of the 8 characters that we need. Back in the town, we got a trophy for farming a bunch of stone, and then I beat the boss for the final time to restore Babylon and the roll credits. Thank you to Kenny Sun and his very small development team, I love this game so much. But our work here is not done. First off, we've unlocked New Game Plus, and this is just a harder version of each level, and you don't actually need to touch it for the Platinum, which I was quite surprised by because the Platinum is very easy, and there's a lot of stuff they could have done, like do levels without taking damage, complete New Game Plus, you know, there's like a lot of stuff that they didn't do. You don't even have to get to Fast Plus 9 in any level for the Platinum, which I found quite surprising. So yeah, I basically never touched New Game Plus other than kind of messing about in it on the first level. But something I did do, however, was farm 100 wood in the one go. At this point I had now gotten every item evolution, but I still didn't have the trophy for every ball and item. But then I realised I had just missed some basic ones that don't actually spawn normally. For example, you won't get any items to do with poison if you don't have a poison ball. So the items I was missing here were ones related to having stone soldiers and archers on your side, which I didn't use very much. I managed to get one of the items on my next run, where I knocked off 2 characters in the second level, while beating the boss before he even appeared. I now had enough resources to build my final 2 buildings, and by using banishes and rerolls, we found our final item for the trophy. And now all we have left is the final grind to complete every level. Just to do some quick maths to give some context, there's 16 characters and 8 levels. If you multiply that, that's 120 runs, and each run takes about 12 minutes, and that's about 25 hours. However, you can obviously place 2 characters at once, which takes us down to 64, which is about 12 hours. But then you can also take some runs off that you've already completed along the way, and you can also play the early levels faster and faster, up to Fast Plus 9, where each level takes about 5 minutes, so it should take you under 12 hours. It took me 8 hours to finish them off, but to save you time, let's pop the remaining 24 trophies, which I couldn't believe how much I had left, as fast as possible. At the end of this run, we'd completed the Snowy Shores 10 times, we then killed 100,000 enemies, completed the Smoldering Depths 10 times, the Gory Grasslands 10 times, the Vast Void 10 times. The Radical and the Tactician's AI got stuck a little bit in the Liminal Desert, but that's okay because they did win eventually, and we beat that level 10 times as well. And finally, we also beat the Heavenly Gates and the Fungal Forest 10 times. And then I systematically ticked them all off for the next 3 hours, so I could get all the character trophies except for the Itchy Finger that I got earlier in one fell swoop. And I replayed every level from 8 to 1 as a different pair of characters. We had the Shade and the Shield Bearer take on the Vast Void, the Warrior and the Spendthrift in the Heavenly Gates, the Cogitator and the Empty Nester in the Smoldering Depths, the Embedded and the Flagellant in the Gory Grasslands, the Repentant and the Cohabitants in the Liminal Desert, the Juggler and the Sisyphus in the Snowy Shores, and finally the Juggler helped the Physicist to defeat the Boneyard. Now you might have noticed that we skipped a level in 2 characters, and that's because I thought it was only fitting that the radical be the one that actually gets me the platinum. I actually spent a fair bit of the game letting him play while I was eating or taking a quick break. Like, look, if you're playing this game and you need to toilet, there's no point pausing the game, just set up the radical to work his magic. So the radical did in fact work his magic by carrying the tactician to a win in the fungal forest, and he got me my platinum. I absolutely love this game, and I hope if you've made it all this way that you end up playing the game too. It's quite cheap and it's amazing, and yeah, so subscribe if you're new and have a good one.